Welcome! In this video, I will try to give you the key points in forward bending so you can advance and you don't hurt yourself. Forward bending can be really useful if you want to relax the brain, if you want to relax the nervous system. It can help with digestion and also with menstruational cramps. But if you do it on the wrong way, or if you have a herniated disc, then it can hurt you. So let's see the practice. Start in child pose. See that you're pushing back the sitting bones. If child pose is difficult for you, then make space between the knees. After a few breaths in child pose, try to move the spine. First you're rounding and arching the spine. When you go back, then push the sitting bones back. When you go forward, push and lengthen the psoas muscle forward. See that you're moving vertebra from vertebra, and see that you make connection between the thighs muscles, the hip, and the spine. Next, make space at the sitting bones, widen the sitting bones, keep the thighs vertical to the ground, move with the hands forward, and try to reach with your chest the ground. See that you make space, you're lengthening the lower back and you're lengthening the abdomen. Make space between the sitting bones and push up the sitting bones, so you're making space at the base of your pelvis. That's a very important key for the forward bend, to make a space at the base of your pelvis. And now come to Adho Mukha Svanasana. A few times bend and strengthen and lengthen the knee. See that the sides getting closer to the abdomen, and see that you're making space at the waist. See that you don't round your waist. See that the sacrum and the waist is in one line, so just push up the sitting bones and widen the sitting bones and the thighs. For the next exercise, we will warm up the hip muscles. You can make little circles with the thighs, and you can do it either with bended leg or with straight leg. Do for both sides 4-4 in each direction. We need to warm up every morning the muscles around the hip, so then they're getting flexible and we can move from the hip muscles and with the right usage of the thighs. Otherwise, we will move from the waist, and that can cause problem if you move from the waist. Let's continue with Adho Mukha wave. See that your spine is moving from vertebra to vertebra, and you make connection between the thighs, the hip muscles, and the spine. See that you're pushing down the ball of your feet, and you use your soul power. And last pose in Adho Mukha Svanasana, come to your forearms. Doesn't matter if your knees are bent or if they are straight, with time you can make them straight. And try to bring your navel button close to the thighs and your chest close to the ground. See that you're really working hard with the sitting bones. You're pushing the sitting bones up and wide. With the next exercise, we're focusing on opening the psoas muscle, because with forward bend, it's very important that you reach mobility and flexibility around your hip muscles and at the base of your pelvis. So come to low lunge, and from there, first you can move, and after you can be static. See that you don't bend forward. You are pushing the sacrum into the spine, you are lengthening the psoas muscle, and you're pushing back the right thighs, you're pushing back to the hip. You make connection between the thighs and the hip muscles. See that you're keeping the hips perpendicular to the ground and you don't bend forward from your hips. You can make a little bit back bend, bring back the spine into the body, and if you want you can move forward and either you can keep the hands straight or you can come to your forearm if you are more advanced. Just see that the heels are firmly grounding on the ground, so you don't let the heels come off the ground. Just push the sacrum into the body and see that you're really lengthening the psoas muscle on your left leg. Next we continue with the opening of the hamstring. You can use a block if you want, especially advisable for men to use a block to make this exercise correctly. So come back and try to bend forward from the hips and not from the waist. So try to push back the sitting bones, try to push back inside the body, the left leg psoas muscles, and use the block if you need, but try to make your spine straight, not rounding, and bring the abdomen forward towards the chest. If this pose becomes easy for you, then you can balancing, grabbing your toes with your fingers. And now let's continue with the pigeon pose. You can move into the pigeon pose a little bit, and if your right buttock doesn't touch the floor, then you can use a cushion or a brick. Make connection between the thighs and the hips, and it's very important that you try to make straight the hips. You don't let the hip to come forward. You really need to use the muscles around the hip and the muscles, the psoas muscle. You can stay in the position, or if you practice enough, then you can bend the leg and you can lengthen the muscle of the left thigh, and also try to bring the spine inside the body. Next we will bend forward for a few breaths. Just breathe into the hip opening, relax the muscles around the thigh and around the hip. For adequate walking, sitting, it's very important to reach flexibility and mobility at the hip area. Relax the hip muscles a little bit and continue to the other side. Bring the left leg forward. Move back and forward. Push the sacrum into the body. Don't bend forward. Try to keep the hips in line. And lengthen the psoas muscle of the right leg. See that your heels are grounding. You can make a light back bend. Push the spine opposite the heart into the sacrum. And bend forward. And just try to push the sacrum close to the ground, lengthening the psoas muscle as much as possible. You can keep the hands straight. It will take practice to reach the ground with your forearms. And now the hamstring opening. See that you don't overflex your knees and try to push the sitting bones back to the back so your sacrum and your waist can be in one line. And you can do the balancing version if you get used to this pose already. Let's continue with the pigeon. You can stay in this position, or you can go to the next level, lengthening the thighs, grabbing the ankle with one hand and the other hand on the knee or with both hands, and pushing the spine into the body. Relax the back of your neck. And relax for a few breaths in forward bend. Next, let's continue with Malasana, with the squatting. With the squatting, there is a few very important points. First, you should push your heel down, raise your knee as much as up, and see that the psoas muscles going down towards the ground, so you can emphasize the sitting bones. If you can do that version, then just stay at the middle squatting, but what's more important, that you should push the sitting bones out to the back, so the sacrum and the waist can be in one line, meantime the navel button getting close to the thighs. What we're trying to do here is make space at the sitting bones and at the base of your pelvis, meantime you grounding the heels and you make strong heels. Make straight one leg and see that the leg is straight. You don't overstretch the knees, and you make mobility in the legs, and you make connection between the thighs and the hip muscles. You can do it a few times without the hands. See that the sacrum is remaining inside the body all the time. And slowly come to Prasarita Padottanasana. You can use a block. See that your heels are really grounding. You can bend the knee a little bit if you need. I will show you from the side as well, then maybe it will be easier. So first see that you're bending from the hips, from the base of your pelvis, meantime pushing out the sitting bones and widening the sitting bones and pushing back the psoas muscle into the body, and you keep the sacrum and the waist in one line all the time. You don't round the lower back. And if you want, you can let the block, and you can push even the belly button more closer to the thigh, and you can make a few twistings, one side and the other side. Twisting is always very good for the spine. It's refreshing the spine. You will gain more energy from twisting the spine. Next we will continue with the most important part, with the sitting forward bend. See that you're grounding well with your sitting bones. Make space at the base of your pelvis. See that you're turning from the point where your hip and your thighs are connected. You don't bending forward from your waist. If you want, you can use a rope. First I will show you the most easy version when you're using a rope and when you're bending your knee. Doesn't matter if your knees are bent or no, just try to reach mobility between the thighs and the hips. Bend forward, see that the belly button is getting closer to the thighs and it's getting forward, and your waist remains straight all the time. Now we come to a side bending. Make more space between the legs. See that the two knees are more apart from each other, and see that you're pushing the psoas muscles towards the sitting bone. Bring your upper body one line with the thighs, and after bend to the side. See that both sitting bones remain on the ground, and you're controlling the movement, the asana, with the thigh muscle and the sitting bones muscle. After the side bends, let's continue with the forward bend. And see that you're bending forward from the base of your pelvis, and you're keeping the waist straight. Be conscious about the thigh bone and be conscious about the sitting bone. Let's make the movement to the other side as well. Now we don't use the rope, but see that the sitting bones are firmly grounded. Reach high, lengthen the spine and bend forward. See that the psoas muscles are activating, and you push it back them towards the sitting bones. First, just try to bend forward without the hands. See the movement, try to control the movement from your hip muscles. Make connection between the thighs and the hip muscles. Bend forward, keeping the belly and the spine straight, reaching forward with the chest, and see that there is no tension at the back of your neck. Now let's do the side bending. See that your hips are firmly grounded, and see that both sitting bones remain on the ground. You can do with the forearms on the thighs, that's the easier version, or you can place the forearms to the ground. That's the more difficult version. And now we're going to the forward bend. This position, especially if you use one or two blocks, and you can remain for a long time supporting your forehead, it can have a tremendous relaxation effect. Just breathe into the posture.
Don't let the clouds disturb your eyes.
We continue with Upavista Konasana, being both legs straight. You can use first ropes for both legs and just see how you're pushing back the thighs into the hips, how you're grounding the hips and making space between the sitting bones. If you want, you can bend the knees, that's not a problem, but see that your feet, your sole, your heels and the balls at your feet are activated. Now we're starting to make circles to relax the muscles around the hips and the waist. It can be very beneficial after long sitting. And don't worry if first time you cannot fully make straight the legs, or if this position becomes difficult, it's only practice. Making connection between the waist, between the hips and the thighs. And just use one or two blocks supporting your forehead and stay in this forward bend for a few minutes as a relaxation and just breathe into the hip area and just see what's happening in your hip area. You can release a lot of emotions, fatigue, insomnia, and other kind of things. And we will close the session with legs together. It's very important that after each hip opening, you compensate somehow with a position where the legs are together. So we continue with Paschimottanasana. You can do with bended legs. Most important here as well to ground with the sitting bones. Bend forward and try to relax your shoulders all the time. For relaxation, you can always use a block. You can try without blocks as well. The longer you stay in a position, the easier it will become, and you will get good results the more you practice. If you practice only once or twice a week, then you cannot really advance in the position. For the first few months you have to practice 4 or 5 times a week, and after, when you get into the position, after it's enough to practice once or twice a week only to keep the level of your practice. And last, after the lot of forward bend, we will push back the sacrum into the body. So come to the bridge pose, and from there raise the heels and place a brick to your sacrum. And see that you pushing back the tailbone towards the knee and the belly button up. Just stay in this position for a few minutes. It's very good for digestion, for lower back problem. You can stay with the legs on the ground, or if you want a little bit of challenge, then you can straighten one leg or both legs. Just be careful, see that the sacrum is fully grounded on the brick. You can stay in this position 3-4 minutes, and you can do this position if you have a herniated disc as well. It will really help you. Always try to relax a little bit forward bend as well.